Good afternoon. Just under a week ago, the world as we knew it has changed forever. With the surprise attack on innocent civilian citizens, men, women, babies, in the Holy Land of Israel for being Jewish residents of that land. What we believed in and what we thought about a week ago has been severely shattered and greatly challenged. And the comments that this is the worst day since the Holocaust perhaps can be a little bit emphasized more, that it is even a harder time because we hoped that we would have learned our lessons. Humanity would become a better people after seeing the atrocities of the Nazis. But we haven't learned. Humans still behave in such barbaric ways. This has been very challenging for each and every one of us and has raised many questions that are symbolized with one word: how? How did this happen? How did this happen on a military level? How does this happen on a security level? How can an attack of terrorists on such a wide scale, right under our nose, been planned and take place? And those are questions that honestly, at this point, doesn't matter. What matters is that it happened and such a great evil has been exposed. Please God, when the miraculous victory in Israel will take place and we can sit back and analyze, perhaps it'll be important to understand those questions to prevent any further such events. But for now, we should suspend that question. But there's another question that we must not suspend that also begins with how. And that is, how do we deal with this situation? How do we deal with this crisis? So many people have reached out to me over the past week, sharing, questioning, wondering. And I myself have been very challenged during these days. As a rabbi, I was called upon to lead a congregation in song and dance on Simchas Torah, on one of the saddest days that will ever be on the Jewish calendar. How do I do that? How could I do that? As a parent with 2 children in the Holy Land and grandchildren, I have to answer questions. We have decisions to make. And I must say that I have been challenged with my faith over the past week. Not a challenge, do I believe in God? I absolutely do. Not in my challenge, does God still exist and care for his people, which I absolutely believe in. The challenge of faith is to apply it into real life, into the realities of our life. Because many times we can have ideas in our mind that we understand, but as long as they remain abstract, it's something that is exactly that, abstract and detached. But when we have to apply it to actual living, then it becomes very challenging. How? How do we use these ideas of faith into our life so that we can apply ourselves at this time to this particular situation? And I would like to suggest to each and every one of you, one thing not to do is to allow yourself to become another victim and another emotional and psychological casualty of these destructive people. Perhaps we should stop watching the videos and constant reports of negativity. We know exactly what happened. We know exactly how barbaric these actions were. And we don't have to feed our minds and our hearts and our eyes with additional images about what has happened. One image is enough to rock our life and to break our heart into many pieces. What we need to do is figure out what role do we play at this time of history. And I would like to begin this conversation with my friends. Right here, I have a candle that was lit in memory of all the victims of this atrocity and the fallen soldiers since. This candle was lit, as you see, it's gone down a few days, at a very special memorial event that we had here at our center in Newtown, filled to capacity of prayer, song, and inspiration. And there was something very special that I felt, very soothing and comforting to my soul, to my broken soul at that time. And that is being together with others, conversing with others, sharing with others. Although we don't have answers, but even questioning together is so powerful. And therefore, I have decided that we can't be together 24/7, but to continue this dialogue, to continue this conversation with each other through this medium of video on Facebook and social media and our website, and through email, because I begin the conversation now. But I don't want to be the one conversing alone. I would like you to respond with questions that you may have, so this will feed the conversation going forward. We will do these videos periodically, every few days, or as I feel the need to respond. But this will be a conversation about how do we deal with this? How do we use this tool of faith to help us not get through this, but grow through this and fulfill the responsibility that God has given on each and every one of us. So this is my email address, rys@jewishcenter.info. And please share with me your questions that will stimulate further conversation. And I intend to respond and use those questions as springboard for continued installments of this series, Faith, Resilience, and Action. So I'd like to begin with a very general conversation, and then we will hopefully expand as we go along. I think the biggest important paradigm shift that needs to take place in each and every one of us is, what does it mean to be a Jew? What does Judaism really mean? Because at the end of the day, that is what's being attacked, not just in the Holy Land, but as a result of the massacre and the atrocity in Israel. Anti-Semitism is springing out and exposing itself in many areas that maybe we may have thought and believed exist, but chose to put our head in the sand and not deal with. But we have to deal with it, and we can't hide from it. We can't hide from being Jewish. And therefore, we need to explore what it really means to be a Jew. Because just like ideas remain abstract and detached, same thing is with Judaism. For many, Judaism, or for all of us at times, Judaism is a luxury. It's an additional feature of life. We do this, we work, we have a family, we work out, we have sports, we're entertained, and then we have something that feeds our spirituality, which we call Judaism. You want a little more, you feed it more. You want a little less, you feed a little less. But it's something in addition, or something else as part of the totality of what we are. It is at these times that I have come to understand that Judaism is not a luxury, it's a necessity. As a Jew, in our soul, God has embedded the tools that we need to survive and understand and approach and deal with the issues that come in our way. Because on the one hand, we believe that God as the creator of the world and God as the manager of the world, who manages and oversees everything, wants only good for us. But how does that God bring us a massacre in the southern part of Israel a week ago? And the answer is that God has given us the tools that even when we can't reconcile what seems to be a paradox in our mind, we still have a way of approaching and dealing with it. And that is what we call faith. Faith is not an unconditional dogmatic acceptance of the presence of a creator that will punish or reward you and make things good. Faith is the ability to dig deep down into who you are and to connect to a space in your life, a space in your soul that gives you the strength, the courage, and the ability to grow, learn, and study and persevere and be resilient in times when the mind cannot fathom. Because the mind is not the end of it all. The mind is the most developed part of the human experience, but it's just that, the human, finite human experience. God has given us a tool of faith, not as a luxury, but as a necessity to be able to bring ourselves to something greater. I saw a very beautiful idea shared by the Rebbe on Simchas Torah. As I told you, it was very challenging for me as a rabbi to be able to lead a congregation in such a difficult time with such a difficult task. So I turned to my teachings of the Rebbe, who's always been my spiritual inspiration and continues to be through the teachings that he's left us. And he shares something very interesting, that on Simchas Torah, we dance with the Torah. Now, the Torah is an intellectual idea, book of Jewish ideas. Why don't we study it? Why are we dancing with it? And here he explains there's something very interesting. You cannot lift your head any higher than it is. There's only one way you can lift your head higher than where it is, and that is through a dance. When you dance, you jump and you elevate. Your feet, the lowest part of your body, is the only part that has the ability to lift the highest part. And the Rebbe explains that by dancing and tapping into an element of the Torah, we are able to lift our minds to a space that our minds themselves are incapable of reaching. Our minds cannot and should not fathom how one human can do something to another human. We should never rationalize human suffering and human pain. Our mind should never go there. But our feet, our faith, is capable of taking us there. And therefore, the tools of Torah are not just ideas of Torah. Observance of Judaism are not just nice things to do. For whatever reason you do them, it makes you feel spiritual. It connects you to your Bubby. It connects you to a Jewish tradition. That is true. But most importantly, a mitzvah that we do, the Jewish tradition and teachings, are there not to connect you to anything else but yourself. To be able to dig deep down into your soul, into yourself, into your reality, to be able to gather strength when we need it. That's why step number one in our conversation is do a mitzvah, study the Torah, come to shul, connect, not because you have to, not because you want to, because that way you can strengthen your soul, you can strengthen your faith, you can strengthen the very force and power within you that gives you the ability to move forward. And I'm going to start right now with sharing something very interesting about this week's Torah reading. This week we're going to read in synagogue a new beginning of the Torah. Breshit bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created the world. How many times did I have to read that? I've already learned that over 57 times of my life. Well, I can't say I learned it when I was an infant, but 50 years, 50 times. I know the story in the back of my hand. So what am I going to go to synagogue again and start again? What is there? And it's fascinating that every year we learn new ideas. And in this year, I think it's probably the most impactful and the most relevant that I've ever experienced. The story of Genesis, the story of creation. Because now we are in a new world. The physical world exists, but our reality is new. 6 days ago, it was shattered, the past. And now we have to recreate a new world order, not in the geopolitical sense, that I leave to politicians and to others, but in my own personal life. The world that I've lived in before now is no longer here. There's a new reality. So now I open the pages of the Torah on the first Shabbat of this new reality and see, how do you create a new world? In the beginning, God says there was chaos, exactly what we've experienced. And then slowly, what is the first thing that the Torah teaches us? The Torah of thousands of years ago, but so important for today when we're in a new world of chaos. What's the very first thing? What's the very first creation that God says? Vayomer Elokim yehi or. Let there be light. Light didn't all of a sudden create the trees and the seas and this fish and the animals and the beautiful world that we lived in. But light is the beginning of the process. And this is what we have to tell ourselves at this time. We have to be generators of light, not feed into the darkness, not succumb to the darkness, not to be the victim to the sociological, psychological, and emotional darkness that these terrorists want us to sink into, but to become sources of light, of positive energy in your life by being positive, trying to speak to someone else in a positive way. It's not easy, but it's clear what needs to be done. And every time we fall down into a space of darkness, tell yourself, I am not going to become another casualty of Hamas. I am going to become an agent of light of Hashem, of the Torah. That's the first thing. How? The Torah continues and will teach you how you can become an agent of light. But let's shift the paradigm. Let's shift the paradigm of what Torah means to us. Let's shift the paradigm of what we can do, of what we need to do. We are the foot soldiers. We may not be the soldiers running into Gaza. We may not be the soldiers fighting the military of Sahel, but we are the soldiers that are generating the light in the front lines wherever we are, because this is a global battle. In Israel, it's a physical battle, but this is an extension of a spiritual battle taking place. There's so much more we can share, and we will share. But I hope this just gives a little direction in how we are to approach. This is what's giving me my strength, and I want to share it with you. And I have more questions, and I'm sure you have more questions. So please don't hesitate. Send me an email, share what you feel, share what you think, and let's discuss this together over the next few weeks. And once we have this developed and established, I'll be putting up a website where we can see more of these videos or more resources to help us get through this special time. But for now, remember that we cannot become victims, and we are not powerless. The IDF has strong power, as it's been shown time and time again, in addition to the military power, the power and the strength given to them by Hashem. But there's another power. And we've heard this time and time again from the soldiers reporting back from the front line, that Jews around the world should not let themselves fall down, but increase in their spiritual life, Because in the realm of spirituality, I could be in Newtown, my fellow Jew can be fighting in Gaza, but we're together. We're one. And when we do what we need to do by bringing light and positive energy, it gives them the ability to fight and finish this war. But the only way we can become sources of light if we connect to the source of our light, the light of the neshama, the light of our faith, the light of our soul, the light of our soul that needs to be strengthened and can be strengthened through the tools that God has given us through the Jewish traditions, Jewish faith, and Jewish teaching. So we may have had the luxury in the past to pick and choose, if we want, how much we want to connect. But let me conclude with the words of a young soldier from Bucks County who's serving now in the reserves in the military in Beersheba. And she left a message for our teens last night at their event. And she told them one thing. Now is the time to dig deeper into the Judaism, understand what you are, and be proud of being a Jew. My dear friends, have a wonderful Shabbat as we think and we pray and we remember the lost souls. The worst thing we can do for them is be down and dispirited. May the memory of the departed souls, may the strength of the soldiers fighting on our behalf to secure our land, the land that God has given to every Jewish person, the land of Israel. May our thoughts that are with them inspire us to be connected to the very soul that they're fighting for, a spark of which is within each and every one of us. Look forward to hearing from you. We'll be in touch. Let's stay together. Let's stick together. And together we will learn and strengthen each other, not just to get through this, but to do what we have to do as active partners in this great effort. Shabbat Shalom.